All right, guys, so we're just checking out this chromatic line. The fingering for that, how that all works. Remember, we talked about chromatic means approaching by half step, usually into the next root note. That's the chromatic approach. Okay, so if we look at the tab, we're looking at example number 8, starting on the C here on the 3rd fret. These are all 8th notes. So the whole line is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. We get into our little riff pattern that we played before. Okay, now here's the notes. 3rd fret, got to play the open string chromatically. Open, 1st fret, 2nd fret, 3rd fret. So it walks into the G here. That's what I mean by chromatic, all by half step. Okay, then it jumps up to the 3rd. Okay, from the G to the major 3rd, chromatically up. Okay, now from here, here's the D. This is actually the 3rd from D, only down an octave. I'll talk about that later, but what we're doing is now we're going chromatically into the A. Walks into the 5th fret into that A, up to the major 3rd, and chromatically into the E. Okay? So let's bring it in on my left hand here. And fingering wise, here's how I typically play. I got the C. Actually, I'm bringing in the full bass here. Because after the C, you got the open E. 1st fret. I shift up here so I can get my 2nd finger into the 3rd fret. Because that's going to set me up for the next note here. So again, fingering wise, I shift, typically. Yeah, it's typically how I do that, okay? So, open string, 1st fret. Now we're set up here. Okay, from here it's chromatically up, finger 1, finger 2, finger 3, okay? Now from here we have to jump back to the 2nd fret. Shift up, 2nd finger, and I think I shift there. And then I shift up with the 2nd finger. Okay, so shifting up with the 2nd finger because now I'm set up to get the 3rd, chromatically up. Okay, so fingering is really important here so that it all flows. Okay, so here it is again, really slow. Chromatically up. Got to jump over. Shift over. And that's where we end up. Okay? So, if you're just starting out with this to kind of get all those notes mapped out, I recommend doing like maybe just quarter notes instead of the 8th notes. Just give your hands time to learn where they're going. The key is you see how they're chromatically walking into the root notes. Okay? If you see that, this is going to make a lot more sense. And if you know where the 3rd is, that's going to help make sense of this as well. Because if you're just relying on patterns, if you're off by a fret or so, one way or another, it's going to be totally off and sound really weird and not good. So we want to see those things. You want to see the 3rds. Now, interesting, let me point this out. Here's the C. Now we go to the open E. Okay, now that's the 3rd. I'm going to bring it in on the bass here. All right, the C to an open E. That's a major 3rd. If you were to play the C like this, and then the E here, okay, that's the major 3rd that we talked about earlier. Now instead of playing the E here, what's cool on the bass is when we go root and drop that 3rd down an octave. And it walks chromatically usually into the next note. Flows really nice. So this is an example of how the 3rd, the major 3rd, is being played down an octave. Then on the G, it's walking up to the 3rd. Now it goes to the D. Now the major 3rd off the D right here, okay? Now, if we drop that down an octave, this is an F sharp, that's over here. So we're dropping that down an octave. So we have that same third, and then walking into the A. Okay, so if you see where those thirds are, it really helps put this line together. And this is a common concept in a lot of tunes, a lot of different styles, probably stemming from jazz and blues, but you know, we find it in rock, we find it in this tune, we find it in funk. So anyway, just noticing where those thirds are. See how the third goes down the octave. The C, open major third. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see all that. In the next video, I'm just going to kind of run this with a track to kind of show you how to go about putting everything together. But hopefully you can see where all the notes are so that you have a clear vision of where all the notes are going. Okay, that's very important in this chromatic line. So in the next lesson, let's check out I'm putting it to time, getting it in speed with the song, and going from there.